This is every single fight to make after UFC 293, Adesanya versus Strickland. I have all of the key fighters from that card on the screen right now. Some winners, some losers. And you may notice there is an empty box next to all of them. And that's where their next opponent's going to go, who I have hidden around the perimeter of the screen. I'll slowly reveal those opponents one by one as the video goes on and place them where they belong on the screen. Let's start straight away with the main event. Sean Strickland walks down Israel Adesanya for 5 rounds, outstrikes him, makes him look a fool, doesn't shoot a single takedown, and beats him with a jab, cross, and a teep. That's all he needed to beat Israel Adesanya. I love this reality that we're in. It's the Sean era. And Sean Strickland, as you can tell by the way I've laid out this video, is not going to be fighting Israel Adesanya next. I don't care what Dana White says. I don't care what anyone says. Israel Adesanya is 1-2 in his last 3 fights. He does not get infinite title rematches just because he brings pay-per-views to the table, because he doesn't even bring crazy pay-per-views to the table. Sean Strickland should be taking on Dricus du Plessis. Simple as that. It's not difficult. The man, Dricus du Plessis, slept Whittaker, not slept him, but TKO'd him just a couple of weeks ago. Literally just over 6 weeks ago, Dricus du Plessis walked into the octagon with Robert Whittaker, won round 1 against him, and then finished him in round 2. He needs a title shot. You have been making the middleweight division go through hoops for so long, and we're even looking down the rankings to get Strickland to get a title shot, and there's been other moments where Vettori has been ranked like number 7 and somehow got himself a title shot. Dricus du Plessis beats Whittaker. That was the problem. That's like someone beating Holloway at featherweight and then the UFC going, I'm not sure. I feel like we can't give him a title shot right now. I don't care on the circumstances. Dricus du Plessis made Whittaker look easy. That's crazy to say out loud, but it's true. Dricus du Plessis has undoubtedly earned his title shot in the middleweight division, and Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis should be next. I'm going to make a whole other video about this rematch situation for Israel Adesanya, because it's absolutely crazy. He's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. You know what? He earned his immediate rematch after he lost to Alex Pereira. He was doing good in that fight. He hurt Pereira in the first round. He was on his way to winning on the scorecards before Pereira landed that shot in the 5th round and finished him. I get it. And he was a dominant champion. So give him an immediate rematch. I don't mind that. You don't just get immediate rematches no matter what because you're a champ. Aljo's not getting one. So neither should Israel Adesanya. And it's not even like that. Aljo should have arguably got one regardless of the result of the O'Malley fight. He was on his way to breaking the bantamweight record. Right? So Israel Adesanya does not deserve an immediate rematch. Strickland versus du Plessis. Simple. You can make it happen in December. You know Sean Strickland's not going to be the type of guy to sit out and wait. He's ready to go. He took no damage. He took no damage in that fight against Israel Adesanya. He's ready to get right back in there, I'm sure. January, December, whenever you want to do it, we need to see Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis because it's the most deserving fight to make right now in the middleweight division. Israel Adesanya got schooled by Sean Strickland. It wasn't close, and I'll tell you this right now, before I get into who's next for Israel Adesanya. If Israel Adesanya wanted to earn an immediate rematch for losing that fight, he should have shown that in the 5th round. But guess what happened? Guess what happened in the 5th round? Sean Strickland gave him a chance to say, come on, make it competitive with me for a second. Earn your immediate rematch if you so badly want it. Walked him down with his arms by his waist, screaming in his face, trash-talking him, and Israel Adesanya backed up and did nothing and cowered away. He don't even want it. So don't give him that immediate rematch. That is the most absolute ludicrous nonsense I've ever heard in my entire life. No. Israel Adesanya, I think he needs to take on the winner of Chimaev versus Costa, which I think might be Khamzat Chimaev. And the funny thing is, do I despise Israel Adesanya? I do. He's a disgraceful human. I don't like him. I'm not even trying to be mean or evil by making this matchup. This is the most rightful matchup to make in the middleweight division. Simple as that. This is the most rightful matchup to make in the middleweight division. Strickland versus Duplessis, Israel Adesanya versus the winner of Chimaev versus Paulo Costa. You're not going to do Adesanya versus Cannonier again. You're not going to do Adesanya versus Whittaker again as contenders. No way. That's just dull. Adesanya beat Cannonier easily. It was a boring fight. No one wants to see it again. He's beaten Whittaker twice, even though the rematch was a bit dodgy. They're only really going to make that if it has to be done when a title's on the line. Chimaev versus Costa is the winner. They should do Whittaker versus Cannonier too. The first fight of that was very competitive, and they've had enough time between that fight and now to make that rematch. Strickland Duplessis and Adesanya versus Chimaev. So if Israel Adesanya waits out, takes some time off, we've got Chimaev versus Costa taking place in a month from now at UFC 294 in October in Abu Dhabi. The winner of that has got to be looking for a quick turnaround if they don't take too much damage. So I think Israel Adesanya shouldn't be looking to come back this year. Put him on the UFC 300 card. You know what I'm saying? I think it's going to take place maybe March, April, maybe not that late. Maybe we can do him at UFC 299, something like in March, or maybe 298 in February, who knows. Israel Adesanya versus Khamzat Chimaev is a massive matchup. And for the UFC, hear me out, UFC, Dana White, you've got your new little, you've got your new little gift here in Israel Adesanya, haven't you? Infinite immediate rematches. If he beats Strickland, then loses again to like Chimaev or Duplessis, does he get another immediate rematch? This is silly. Israel Adesanya, hear me out, UFC. No belt, no pay-per-view share. Yet he probably still brings a solid amount of pay-per-view buys. So if logic and just meritocracy is not going to get into Dana White's thick, roided skull, then think about the money here. You can make pay-per-view buys out of Israel Adesanya without having to allocate in pay-per-view shares. So do it. Israel Adesanya versus the winner of Chimaev versus Costa. If it's Costa, it's been a while since that fight as well. You know what I'm saying? It has been a bit of time since that fight. We are quite far removed. And if Costa beats Chimaev, that's a huge win, and it will show that he's improved and show that he's now back on track, and that'll be a great matchup and a great build-up with them two trash-talking each other. But if Chimaev wins, this is a no-brainer matchup that genuinely would add, in my opinion, I reckon it adds 250,000 pay-per-view buys to a card without a title on the line. Adesanya Chimaev. Make it happen, especially if Chimaev beats Costa in dominant fashion. Good Lord. February, make that matchup. We move on to the co-main event. Let me move on now. I've spent 7 minutes on the main event. Alexander Volkov got a big win over Tuivasa. Gonna need a little bit of time off. You know, he took some damage. He checked a lot of kicks, so his leg is going to be sore. And he took a lot of leg kicks as well. But he checked the majority of them. I was watching back the fight today. I don't see how people thought that was competitive. But he did use a lot of energy in that fight, and he was exhausted by the end. So he's going to need a little bit of time off. So I think a perfect scheduled matchup would be, you can't do him versus Gane. You can't do him versus Aspinall again. He got dominated. You kind of have to do him versus the loser of Jailton Almeida versus Curtis Blades. And at the moment, I'm not sure if I'm set on this prediction yet. I think the loser's going to be Curtis Blades. And I also think if Curtis Blades does lose, it will likely be in the first round, and he'll likely not take a crazy amount of damage. I don't see him getting flatline KO'd by Jailton Almeida. If he loses, I see him getting positionally dominated, maybe rear naked choked, or maybe TKO'd for unanswered strikes. You know what I'm saying? And not improving his position. So I think he can make a decently quick turnaround. If he loses in November, we could be looking at April, maybe as like the prelim headliner of UFC 300. Alexander Volkov, Curtis Blades 2. The first fight was very competitive. 3-2 to Curtis Blades. I think Volkov has only improved since then, and I think it'd be a good look for Curtis Blades to fight a guy that he went to a close decision with quite some time ago, to see if he actually has made improvements since then, because we've always had the assumption that whenever Curtis Blades looks good in a fight, we go, oh, you know, he's made improvements in this fight. But then when he loses, it's like, oh, Curtis Blades, same old Curtis Blades. So if he wants to prove improvements, he needs to fight Volkov in a rematch and make it more clear than it was the first time. We move on to the co-main event. Tuivasa. He lost. Really bad loss. Needs a little bit of time off. I think he should be looking to face someone who got finished recently that's also going to need a little bit of time off. Marcin Tybura. I think this is a logical matchup to make. It's a nice matchup for Tuivasa as well. It's someone that he hasn't fought before. And I think this is just a no-brainer. You know what I'm saying? Both guys coming off losses. Both going to be now in similar positions in the rankings. Haven't fought each other before. Fresh matchup. Marcin Tybura is like a a respectable opponent. Like, you don't beat him and everyone goes, oh, you beat some absolute can. He's like a decent top 15 level heavyweight. So I think that Tuivasa versus Marcin Tybura makes all the sense in the world. Also, I want to go back to Volkov Blades here as well. I think that they could also do, if, let's say, Blades beats Jailton Almeida, you won't then do Volkov Jailton Almeida, and you might not want to do Blades versus Volkov because then there's no one for Cyril Gane, right? So hear me out. If Blades does beat Alexander Volkov, I know it's not right logically for the rankings, but Derek Lewis did beat Volkov, and I think that does sell a little bit. That's like a decently good addition to the opener of a main card of a pay-per-view. Alexander Volkov versus Derek Lewis 2 is also an option, but I'd rather this one first. We move on. Down the card. Manel Kape. Based Chef Kape. Got a huge win. Not a great performance for himself. I'm sure he'll admit that as well. But he's looking for the... How much of that did I say? All right, I think I'm all right. He's looking for the matchup that we know he's looking for, and that's against Kai Kara France. That's the matchup. Manel Kape, Kai Kara France. Make it happen. The bad blood is there, and the UFC said, Dan Hooker let this known in an interview, made this known in an interview. I think it was Pub Talk. Someone was telling me about this on IG DMs. Manel Kape versus Kai Kara France. Allegedly, they're going to New Zealand again, early 2024. So that seems like a good timeline to do this. Whether it be January, February, who knows? I'm assuming Dan Hooker's going to be back for that card. And I think Manel Kape, Kai Kara France is a perfect bad blood matchup to make as like a co-main event of that fight night card. Huge matchup, a lot of bad blood on the line. I don't think people were really interested in it in the first place, but now after the press conference from Manel Kape and the post-fight call-out, everyone's invested in that matchup at flyweight. One of the biggest non-title fight flyweight matchups we've had in a very long time. So Manel Kape, Kai Kara France, making it happen. We move on. Tyson Pedro. Got a win over Anton Turkalj. So here's what I want to do with Tyson Pedro. How about someone coming off a win? You know what I'm saying? How about someone coming off a win, dude? Him versus Felipe Lins. Now I know what you're going to say. Guru. Felipe Lins is fighting against Ion Cutelaba in October. I'm very aware of this. Okay, it's on a fight night card. Very aware. Good matchup. Give him the winner. I personally think that Ion Cutelaba is so tarded that he'll probably lose to Felipe Lins, because Lins is quite hard to finish, and he's a big, powerful dude. He stays composed, and he's good across the distance of a fight. So I think if it does leave the first round against Cutelaba, we could see Felipe Lins get a win there. But I could change my mind on that. We'll see. But either way, I want Tyson Pedro versus the winner of Felipe Lins versus Ion Cutelaba, because then it'd be someone on a win streak, and actually somewhat of a test for Tyson Pedro. Although Tyson Pedro's cool, promotable, seems like a nice guy, he's one of the most babied fighters in the UFC I've ever seen. Ike Villanueva, then he got given Harry Hunsucker, then he got given some Asian dude on the regional scene who was not UFC level anyway. Then he got Modestas Pekauskas on short notice because that dude pulled out, lost that one, and now he gets Anton Turkalj, who's on a 2-fight losing streak. So give him someone coming off a win, please, for the love of God. Speaking of babied and coddled contenders that the UFC's taken a liking to, Carlos Ulberg. Enough of these matchups against people coming off losses. It's time for a test for Carlos Ulberg. He's built himself back up. He superseded Kennedy Nzechukwu in the loss that he had to Kennedy Nzechukwu. So I think it's time for a test. He called out Dominic Reyes. I'm going to be honest with you. Most pathetic call out I've ever heard in my entire life. You are a coward for calling out Dominic Reyes. You're not getting Dominic Reyes. You're getting a ranked light heavyweight contender. By the way, I don't mind if Ulberg gets ranked number 15 after this. Just saying. You are getting a ranked light heavyweight contender coming off a win, and one of them that's coming off a win recently by quick finish that's ready to make a turnaround, possibly for New Zealand in February in 5 months, is no time. Volkan Ozdemir. I think that's a great matchup. I know I've matched him up with another guy just a week ago, but I do like this matchup for Carlos Ulberg. I think this is a great one. It's actually a test for once. Carlos Ulberg, Volkan Ozdemir. We saw that Daton Jung was giving him some problems with low kicks. Ozdemir's got really nasty low kicks, and he's got good takedown defense. And I think this would be a good test. If Ulberg can finish Ozdemir, you put yourself like, oh, this guy's actually top 10 level, top 5 level. So I think Carlos Ulberg, Volkan Ozdemir is the matchup to make. And I think it is time for a test for Allberg. But I don't mind giving him some time first, having him on that New Zealand card, because I'm already seeing that New Zealand card in my head. Dan Hooker versus a big name at lightweight up the top in the main event. Co-main event, Manel Kape, Kai Kara France. Big matchup. Feature fight, Carlos Allberg versus Volkan Ozdemir. It's a no-brainer card. We move on. Jamie Mullarkey got gifted a decision against John McDessie. I didn't like the decision. I didn't think it was a good decision whatsoever. Yeah, not a good one. But he won. Gonna need some time off because he took a bit of damage and he's fought a lot recently after being KO'd in his last fight. Someone else who's gonna need a little bit of time off that was supposed to fight Jamie Mullarkey in Australia. So again, maybe we're looking at that New Zealand card here as well. Nasrat Haqparast got a big win over Landon Quinones and almost said John Quinones. What would you do? Either way, Jamie Mullarkey versus Nasrat Haqparast, a fight that was supposed to happen before, so they both know they're willing to fight each other, and for the UFC as a matchmaker, that's like, oh, heaven. These guys want to fight each other. They're down to fight each other. Let's make that matchup happen. Jamie Mullarkey, Nasrat Haqparast, put them against each other, get it done in New Zealand. Now, Charles Radke. I had to really think about this matchup because I wanted it to make sense, because, of course, that post-fight interview was crazy. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to need to plan out this guy's career accordingly. I want it to make sense. I want it to draw attention. I want it to make pay-per-view money. I think the money fight for Charles Radke right now, not the most logical of fights, okay? It might not even be in his division. The most logical of fights for Charles Radke after that post-fight speech that he gave, I think the grudge match is him versus Jeff Molina. That's what I think it is, okay? I think this is the money fight. This is the one that people want. This is for the culture. Charles Radke, Jeff Molina, bad blood. You never seen anything like it. You thought Strickland and Adesanya had bad blood? You thought that Israel Adesanya would have had bad blood against Dricus du Plessis? Not close. This is the bad blood grudge match that the UFC has been looking for the last decade. Charles Radke versus Jeff Molina. Pure animosity. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. No rematch for Israel Adesanya. Hound after Dana White in his Instagram comment section for that as well. Do not give Israel Adesanya that rematch. He does not deserve it whatsoever. Like and subscribe. See you later.